Be honest. Are you just stacking positive affirmations on top of unprocessed pain? Are you doing the work or are you just keeping busy so you don't have to feel? Today, I'm diving deep between the difference between real emotional healing and avoidance, because let's be real. True healing is not just lighting candles, meditations, and singing kumbaya in some wellness retreat, okay? It's about facing the hard shit head on. And if you haven't noticed, that's a common theme on this show. I want you to get comfortable, grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's talk about what it really means to heal and do the work. It's time to tune in and shift with me. Welcome back to the On Some Real Shift podcast, where I have real conversations on what it takes to shift your mindset and uplevel your emotional and spiritual life. I'm your host, Vanessa. I'm a certified life coach, mindset transformation coach. I do Reiki and sound bath healing. I'm a neuro-linguistic practitioner, but most importantly, I am a student of the university. Welcome back. I'm giggling a little bit because when I first entered my healing journey, which was, I'll say maybe like my early 30s, so almost 10 years ago. And I remember thinking, okay, if I just kind of do all these things, check all these boxes, if I meditate, if I journal, if I say positive affirmations, I'm going to heal myself. And that's not how it works. I remember doing all of these things and wondering why I wasn't getting the results I wanted to get. And it was because I wasn't allowing myself to truly go there. I wasn't allowing myself to truly heal. When things started to get uncomfortable, I started to shy away and I said, ooh, this must not be healing because it doesn't feel good. One thing that I have learned in this healing journey is that if it doesn't feel good, you are probably on the right track. Okay, maybe not all the time, but I'm just saying it can be very, very uncomfortable. Healing is not this rainbows and butterflies journey that Instagram is going to make you feel like. That's okay. It's not supposed to feel good all the time. The key is we don't want to just look healed. We want to be healed. We want to be whole, and it takes work. Healing is not just distracting yourself with the spiritual routines that you see on social media. Like I always tell y'all, it is about taking a hard look at yourself and peeling back the layers of the onion and getting to the root of the problem. So let's get into it. How do you know you're really healing or avoiding the pain? Let's talk about what healing is not. Healing is not just listening to every self-help podcast, including mine, and not sitting with your emotions. If you can't sit with it, if what you're listening to starts to elicit some kind of uncomfortable feelings, uncomfortable emotions, and you just kind of skirt by it, that is not healing, that is avoiding. If you're listening to one of my episodes and I strike a nerve, that is your cue to say, ooh, we've got something here. And if you listen to my episode on triggers, episode 2, shameless plug, then you'll know that our triggers are this beautiful gift, right? That our bodies tell us, oh, this is where some healing needs to happen. And then it's up to us to investigate and figure out what that really means. Our triggers are where our unprocessed pain is at. And that is okay. That is something that we can use to our advantage. But if we are continuing to avoid it, then no change can happen there. No healing can happen there. Same thing for books. Healing is not reading every self-help book and then not applying the lessons. Ooh, this is a good one. Healing is not filling your calendar with all of those right appointments. I mean, therapy, coaching, yoga, meditation, and not having the hard conversations, especially with yourself. All of those modalities, the yoga, the coaching, the therapy, they're great. I subscribe to all of them. I think they're all wonderful in their own right. They all do great things. But they are meaningless if you are just going to avoid the work. They're meaningless if you're not going to then follow up with yourself and say, okay, what am I learning here? What does this mean for me in my life? Ooh, and this is a good one because I feel like most of us have been guilty of this at some point, myself included. But healing is not cutting people off left and right, but not addressing, number one, the issues, and number two, the reasons why you may be attracting these types of dynamics in your life over and over and over again. I get that sometimes some dynamics require just a smooth, clean cutoff because the person is toxic, dangerous, whatever. Fine. But how many of you have cut somebody off in the name of preserving your peace, knowing good and well you were just avoiding a hard conversation? I know I have. And that's not healing. On top of that, we've got to be able to take it a step further and look at ourselves and ask ourselves, well, why is it that I am continuing to attract these types of dynamics, these types of relationships? And listen, if you're being mistreated, I'm not saying that this means that you deserve this type of treatment because you're attracting it. But what I'm saying is it is up to you to figure out what within you believes that you are worthy of this type of treatment. What is it within you that is attracted to these types of personalities, these types of behaviors? Because they're showing up in your life over and over again for a reason, right? And if they're showing up, why is it that you are continuing to entertain them? See, because it's very easy to point the finger at the other person and say, well, she did that and he did that and she said this and da 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 da, all of the stuff, but it doesn't really, really matter because at the end of the day, it is your life and it's completely up to you to draw the line, to draw the gate, to build the fence, whatever you need to do to protect your peace, to draw those boundaries, to make sure that people who are disturbing your peace don't infiltrate your bubble. At some point, you got to be willing to look at yourself and say, I chose to entertain these dynamics for such a long time, and ask yourself, well, what within me believes that I deserve that type of treatment? I do want to say that I'm not referring to situations to where your safety might be in question or any type of abusive situations. I'm talking about these scenarios where we can remove ourselves from safely, but we choose not to because we have not broken that pattern yet. I've said it before, and it usually comes from a lack of self-love. If you have caught yourself saying, I'm just protecting my peace, but deep down you know you're just avoiding discomfort, then I'm talking to you, my friend. And it's okay. I've done it too. It's just time to recognize those patterns and break them. See, true healing requires the messiness, the uncomfortable stuff that we would much rather avoid. I'm starting to feel a little bit like a broken record on this channel because I'm finding that a lot of the things that I talk about are kind of show up in other episodes, but they're all interwoven. Our brains are hardwired to keep us in what feels familiar, even if it's not for our highest good. So it is very natural. It makes sense as to why we tend to stay in situations that aren't good for us. So when I say all these things, it's not in judgment. Our bodies are wired to do this. But this is why it's so important for us to be cognizant and take the active steps to be active participants in our own life. Recognize when we're participating in more like self-sabotaging behaviors rather than healing behaviors. Part of healing is being able to grieve and grieve old versions of yourself. And let me tell you what this means. The healing process is never ending. Once you hop on this healing journey, you better strap in because once you're on and you're moving forward. Even if it doesn't feel like it, you are moving forward at all times, full speed ahead, even when you can't see it, okay? And part of that means shedding old versions of yourself. And there's a lot of grief involved in that because we don't really realize how closely our identities are tied to a lot of behaviors or patterns that don't serve us or people that don't serve us. And in order for us to elevate to the next level, in order for us to truly heal and move on, we have got to be willing to let those things go, those people go, those patterns go. For me, one of the biggest ones was drinking. And I kind of had to mourn the version of myself that was Vanessa who used to drink alcohol. Spoiler alert, it was the most beautiful thing ever, putting that version of myself to rest. I just didn't know at the time when I was going through it. I didn't really realize when I was in it that I closely identified with alcohol because I thought, oh, this is the only way that people are going to like me and that I'm going to be fun. And it took me a long time to get out of my head that people are still going to like me if I don't drink alcohol. I was so worried that people were no longer going to want to be around me because of a choice that I made for my highest self, that I didn't have the foresight to see that whoever dropped off was only making room for the people who were actually aligned and meant to be in my life. And my life has only elevated since then. The quality of my relationships has only elevated since then. But when I was knee deep in it, I couldn't see it. I was so closely connected to the version of Vanessa with alcohol that I couldn't see myself without it. Same thing with people. I don't think we talk about it enough, but healing really will require for us to let go of people that we love. The people that we have to let go of in our healing journey aren't always necessarily bad people or detrimental people. They're just simply people who are not ready to hop on the healing journey themselves. And once you're on it, you will realize that it's really, really hard to be around people who are not willing to be on their own healing journey. It's almost impossible. What happens is their unhealed wounds start to bleed on you and you become so hyper aware and so cognizant of what they are not healing. And you look at your life and you're like, well, I'm working on me. I can only afford to be around people who are also cognizant and working on them. Does not mean that you're any better than them. It just means that you're in a different spot. But if you're committed to your healing and your growth and your inner peace, then you're going to have to probably make the hard decision to know that I'm going to have to move on and remove this person from my life. Or maybe you can get away with just distancing yourself. I don't know. But in my experience, I'll tell you, it's 9 times out of 10, I've had to just move on because I'm committed to my peace. I'm committed to my growth. And I can't afford to be around people who are not also seeking to grow in the same ways. And it's hard because you want it for them sometimes more than they want it for themselves. Which brings me into my next piece is real healing is going to get lonely. It's going to get lonely. And some people call it the cocoon phase, but it's an awesome phase if you ask me, because that is when so much change happens. That's when you get to be really introspective and your new standards start to be born first. I can tell you when I was in my first of many cocoon stages, that's kind of when I established my baseline of the bottom of the barrel level of peace that I was willing to accept in my life. And if you could not bring me a certain level of peace, I just couldn't entertain it. And again, didn't mean that you were bad. There were just certain confines in my life that I was not willing to leave when it came to my personal peace. What happens when you are able to really sit with yourself or be lonely is you really start to value your own presence and your own energy and understand that it is really, really valuable. And you start to become more mindful of where you're putting your energy, where you're putting your presence, which in turn, you start picking people that are in more alignment with where you are and where you're going. Again, doesn't mean that you're better than the next person. It just means that you're picking people that are more closely aligned to your path. Sitting with yourself and becoming lonely will highlight that you are outgrowing people. But again, it just is leaving room for the people that are better aligned for you. It's hard. It really is hard, but you'll get through it, I promise. And you can't see it in the moment. You can't see it from the seat that you're in. All you can do is feel, well, I'm so alone. I'm so sad that I ended this friendship, that I ended this relationship, that I ended this job, whatever. But I promise you, down the line, you're going to say, oh, but I have all this energy left for the right people, for the people that are better fits for me. The other piece that real healing requires is being able to face your own patterns and admit the role that you have played in your own suffering. And that, my friends, is also hard. It goes back to taking accountability, which I talked about in my last episode. I'm not going to stop plugging my old episodes, okay? Taking accountability for your role in your own suffering is really huge, and a lot of people don't do it because we get accountability confused with blame, right? Not realizing that when you can't take accountability, you are leaving yourself stuck. You are leaving yourself to be the victim of life's circumstances. Life is going to be the one jerking you around because it's always going to be somebody else's fault as to why something happened, and you're never going to be the one in control. It's going to create distance with the people in your life because truly, nobody actually wants to be around people who don't know how to take accountability. If you hurt somebody, if you mishandled something or somebody, and you are unable to say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I realize I could have done this better. I should have done this better. I should have communicated this better. I could have done this, whatever. If you're not able to do that, over time, people are not going to want to develop relationships with you because you're not ever going to be able to mend that bridge if there's ever any kind of infraction with them. And then you, as a person who can't take accountability, are always going to be pointing the finger at the other person. Well, oh, they stopped talking to me and I don't know why. And you're going to be in the cycle of this revolving door of having people in and out of your life and you don't know why, but it's simply because you can't look at the role that you may be playing in these dynamics. It is okay to say that you screwed up. It's okay to say, I could have done this better. It builds trust within yourself and it builds trust with people around you. But back to you. You've got to be able to face the patterns that you have repeated. And we all do it. You're not alone, so don't feel bad. And ask yourself, well, if I'm repeating this pattern, what is this saying about myself? What am I telling myself that is making me repeat these patterns? And it might not always be in the context of other people. Maybe it's in the context of food. Maybe it's in the context of money. Whatever it is, you got to be able to look at yourself in the places that you would like to be better in your life and say, okay, well, what could I do differently here that would be more beneficial for me? Even if it's a hard decision to make, even if it's a hard road to go down. And I'll use the same old example as I've used a million times in the show already, which is I go back to that raggedy ass relationship I was in. I can point the finger at him all I want, but at some point I really had to look at myself and say, okay, Vanessa, but you chose to stay in this for a long time. Why? And then I had to get real with myself. Oh, because you don't love yourself. You think that this is the type of treatment that you deserve. And I had to start unpacking that, right? And it was hard. It was really, really hard. I felt shame. I felt embarrassment. But once I was able to unpack it, then I was able to leave. Then I was able to shut that door. Then I was able to build my self-love. And it'll be the same thing for you. But until you're able to get real with yourself and take a hard look at those patterns, you're not going to be able to identify them. If you're just constantly skirting by them, brushing them to the side, acting like they don't exist, acting like you don't have a role in your own suffering, then you're going to continue to attract the same old thing. And you're going to be pointing the finger at Richard, acting like Richard is the only reason why things are going bad in your life. When really, you're the one entertaining Richard. Sorry, Richard. But yeah, that's where a lot of people get stuck because healing hurts. It's hard. It's much easier to just say that you're healed than to actually sit with the discomfort that comes with it. But until you process those emotions, they're not going to just magically going to go away. I hate that saying that says time heals all wounds because that's a lie. Time does not heal all wounds. Time's just going by. We're just getting older. The only thing time is doing is continuing to go by without us addressing the real issues. Time does not heal all wounds. You heal your wounds. Unhealed wounds are driving so many of our behaviors and we don't even realize it. They're just sitting right there under the surface, subconsciously driving our choices, our behaviors, our relationships, our jobs, up until you finally face them. So let's go a little bit deeper on some signs that you are avoiding and not healing. And I bet this one's going to hit a lot of y'all because it hit me. You constantly need distractions. I'm talking about the scrolling, the watching the TV, the dating, the smoking, the drinking. It could be even the food. You're doing anything and everything to keep your mind occupied instead of just sitting with your thoughts. I have been guilty of it. I have sat in front of the TV calling myself watching a show with my phone in my hand with some social media app open, scrolling. Not watching the show that I'm supposed to be watching. Make that make sense. And I know tons of people do it. Tons. So we've got to ask ourselves, what are you running away from? Why do we need this constant stimulation? Why can't we just be? So I want to challenge you. The next time you find yourself with your phone in your hand and the TV going and all of the things, all the distractions and the music and the this and that, I want you to put your phone down, turn your notifications off, turn the TV off, be in complete silence, and I want you to sit with your thoughts for 5 minutes. You don't have to do anything. Just sit. Just sit. If your phone vibrates, makes a noise, don't check it. Just sit and take note of how you feel. Write it down or take a video journal afterwards and talk about it. And I'm not telling you not to scroll on your phone. I'm not telling you not to watch TV or date or eat or whatever. But what I'm saying is when we constantly need distractions, when we constantly need our mind to be occupied with something other than our own thoughts, that is a huge sign that there is at least one thing, but probably several things that we are avoiding within ourselves that need attention. Ooh, another one is when you say that you don't want to give something energy. So you avoid talking to that person or talking about it, but deep down, you know it still has a grip on you. All you're doing is avoiding. That's it. You're skirting by the issues that need attention. And you're masking it as not wanting to give away your energy or wanting to protect your peace. And you know when you're doing it. But let's get into this last one. It's a big one. It is when you tell yourself or tell somebody else that you forgive them, but deep down, you're holding on to resentment. Studies show that forgiveness or releasing resentment can lead to better sleep, lower anxiety, and stronger relationships. It is just overall scientifically proven to boost your overall well-being. So it's not just feelings, it's not just vibes. I realize a lot of people don't forgive because they think that forgiveness means that they are absolving the other person from the shitty behavior, and that's not what it is at all. Forgiveness is allowing yourself to release yourself from whatever emotional burden that you're carrying in relation to that person, to the situation, whatever it is. A lot of people don't forgive because they think they're punishing the other person, but in reality, the only person that you're punishing is yourself. Do you think that person is the one walking around carrying that heavy burden of emotions? No, it's you. Forgiveness says, I am making the choice to no longer carry this resentment, carry this anger, carry this sadness, carry this pain. I'm going to take it, remove it, put it over here, and move on. And you can forgive somebody and not allow them back in your life. That's where we get it twisted. Forgiveness and access to your life are not synonymous. Forgiveness is never for them, but it is always for you. So I feel like we ragged on what healing is not. Let's talk a little bit about what it is. And it's kind of pretty much the opposite of everything that I listed. Healing is sitting with your emotion. It is being able to look at yourself in the mirror and have the hard conversations with yourself. It is being able to feel and work through your emotions instead of numbing them. It's being able to reflect on your past without a lot of anger or shame or sadness. And I want to be clear, there's nothing wrong with those feelings. Healing doesn't mean experiencing no feelings. Healing doesn't mean being completely numb. We are here to experience feelings. It is just up to us to learn how to move through them and move forward. But what I mean is we know that we have healed from a particular situation when we can talk about something and it's completely neutral to us. But these things don't become neutral with just time, as that stupid saying, time heals all wounds, would just suggest, right? These things become neutral when we force ourselves to face them. Healing looks like taking accountability and ownership of your healing instead of blaming other people for your pain. And again, that does not absolve them of their shitty behavior, but what it says is you're not going to be a victim of it. You're going to take life into your own hands and you're going to do something about it. It is up to you. Healing is recognizing your triggers and using them as opportunities for growth instead of shutting down. And again, I know that there are scenarios where the triggers run deep and they can stem from really, really traumatic events. And sometimes they just require a lot more attention. And that is okay. Every wound requires a different degree of healing, and that's fine. Okay, so this week I want to challenge you guys to a few ways that you can move from avoiding healing to actively healing. Number one is stop running from your emotions. The next time something is uncomfortable, the next time something is painful, I want you to pause and sit with it. I want you to ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? What is this trying to show me? Number two, I want you to write it out or do like a video journal, and not just the surface level stuff. I want you to get real. What are the patterns that keep showing up? What is it that you're afraid to face? Number three is to talk about it, whether it's with a coach, whether it's with a therapist, whether it's with a trusted friend, family member. Talk about it. Healing happens in the expression, not in the silence. Number four is get comfortable with the discomfort. Healing is not a quick fix. It's uncomfortable. But the more you lean into the discomfort, the more you'll grow and the more powerful you're going to feel for it. And lastly, be patient with yourself. Healing is not linear. You're going to have setbacks, but that does not mean that you're failing. That means that you're human. Spiritually speaking, it usually means when you're being pulled backwards, you're about to be propelled forward. So hang in there. At the end of the day, healing is not about just looking healed on the outside, about posting a picture of yourself under a waterfall on Instagram with the sun shining out of your ass. Okay. That's not what it's about. It is about doing the deep, uncomfortable work to become whole. It's messy, it's painful, but it is absolutely worth it. I challenge you this week to take an honest look at where you are in your healing journey. It's not a competition. I just want you to take a look. Ask yourself, are you truly healing or are you avoiding? You might be doing a mix of the two, and that's pretty common too. Or maybe you realize you've just been avoiding. That's okay. Awareness is the first step. If this episode hit home for you, I'd ask you to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and send it to somebody that you think that would benefit from it. As always, I'm so grateful for your time, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Peace.